welcome to another segment of Community Conversations. My name is Nancy Haase, and I'm on the Board of Selectmen in Simsbury. And today I'm joined by Cheryl Cook, who I think, to give a long list attached to that name, we'll get to know and talk about some of those things. But Cheryl is a member of the Housing Authority in Simsbury, and we've known each other for a number of years. And we both volunteer a lot in town.
That's right.
And we enjoyed recently the volunteer appreciation event that the Republicans put together, honoring a lot of folks that volunteer. And I know you were there in your role of the Housing Authority. But I think just to let folks know a little bit about what you do, because we have a lot of good volunteers in town. And
That's true.
yeah. So why don't we start out just by letting folks know how long have you lived here, your husband Brad, and yeah.
Actually, it's 10 years this summer.
Wow.
Probably this week.
But, are there any boxes still?
Probably.
Yeah.
My husband actually works in Bloomfield, so we came here to be closer to his job.
Yeah.
And I have 3 children and I have my last one going to the high school this year. I can't even believe it. But
time flies.
I know. My oldest is 22. My middle one is 19, and my youngest is 14.
Wow.
Boy, girl, boy.
Boy, girl, boy. Okay. So from an early start, 10 years when you got to town, you probably didn't, I'm sure, knowing you don't sit still. So how did it all get started?
I sat in the back of the room at the squadron PTO meeting, and I saw you. It was true. I looked up and I was like, wow, I could do that. But honestly, I was so impressed when I first got here how everybody volunteered, because we came from a town where, 4 or 5 people did everything. And when we came here, I was just amazed and thrilled to see all the people who volunteered for everything.
Yeah.
So it was a great change for us, and we love it here. We really do.
Yeah. So with the 3 kids, how did it get started? I mean, most people talk about sort of a PTO introduction to things, and that's how I, as you mentioned, I got started, and I think it was the same for you, right?
It was. It really was. And my daughter was going into 5th grade when we moved here, so we were kind of hitting the tail end of that one. And I wanted to get involved right away because I knew she only had 2 years to be at Squadron, and we wanted to make the most of it. So it was a great community feeling there, and we just jumped right in.
Yeah, and you didn't take a background role, so to speak, because you've had a couple presidencies.
Well, I did. Once I kind of got the hang of it at Squadron, I was on a few committees, and then when she went to Henry James, I became the president of the PTO at Henry James, which was great. I really enjoyed it. I was actually president for a year and a half because I took over for someone the first year and went through the next year. So it was a good experience for me. I really loved it. And then when my son was moving into Squadron, we decided it was time to take on the big job.
That's what we're saying.
Because at Squadron, the presidency is a 3-year commitment. You're a president-elect the first year, then you're the president, and then you're the past president, where you help out the people coming up behind you. So.
It's a great way to do it because it's such a good transition.
It is.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about Henry James, and that was, a good experience and certainly a heavy load, but the elementary schools, there's so many more programs and a lot of fundraising and a lot of stuff that goes on. So
I was absolutely astounded by the time they told me I had to fill 40 committee chairs.
That's
well, let's get on the phone. But it was a great experience, and I loved doing it, and I was really happy I did. So
it's a nice way to meet a lot of people and stay involved in the schools.
A lot of people, and you find out what's going on in town, and it's a lot of fun.
So from there, of course, you went to the high school, and
I did. Well, I figured by the time I got to the high school, I didn't want to go number 3, so I actually, and besides, my daughter didn't want me to. She's like, okay, Mom, you can stop that. So I got involved with the school spirit committee, and which was a great experience because it's not exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, people probably think a little bit of the
yes,
rah-rah.
it's not rah-rah and,
Yeah.
and that, but we school spirit in the sense of the school community and their relationship with the community at large.
Right.
So we, my co-chair and I developed an event called March Madness, and it's a big party essentially at
Yeah.
Rock and Bowl for the students, and we sort of co-sponsor it with the ABC House.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so the ABC House residents all participate in the planning, and the PTO funds the whole project, and all of the proceeds from the evening go to the ABC House.
Yeah. So you guys really developed that that program, and it's how many years? I mean, because it's still going on today.
It's been a while,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope it is. I'm looking forward to seeing it again when I get back there next year
Yeah.
with Terry. So
I do remember. I mean, I hear about that when the announcements come home from the school. That I think it's something that they've continued on, and it's nice. The AVC program, for folks that don't know, is right in the center on Hot Meadow Street, and
Right.
the kids there come from a lot of different places across the country,
Right.
but come here to go to school because they're a little less advantaged and they can get a great education here and a lot of support, and they go on to be
and there's a lot of
wonderfully
host
successful.
families, you
Right.
know, who host the kids and bring them into the community life, and we thought just to celebrate that,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the school spirit. So
Yeah.
that
Oh,
was
that's great.
that was our motivation.
Wow, that is great. And so your experiences outside of the school, talk about a couple of other things that you do. I know, and we can maybe share with folks as we pull the program together some of your furry friends.
I do. I love my German Shepherds. We are a Fidelco family. If it's the Fidelco Guide Dog Foundation in Bloomfield, and they are on the same campus as my husband's employer,
Oh, okay.
Command.
Yeah.
So we used to take the kids to watch the puppies at the open houses and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when my daughter was in high school, she wanted a dog, and my husband was like, "We're not just getting a dog so you can go to college."
Right.
So we went back and went through the Fidelco orientation programs, and you really have to buy into their whole vision. To raise a puppy and give it back, So, to bring the kids in and let them understand what these dogs were going to do.
Yeah.
And she wanted to do it as a service project.
Oh,
So
nice.
we said while she was in high school, our first dog would be her service project.
Wow.
So we got our first one.
And then it didn't end there, right?
It didn't end there. The first one went off to be a guide dog in South Carolina, but
Yeah.
we are on our third dog
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So
It must be hard. Is it hard to,
it is hard,
Yeah.
but
but rewarding?
it's
Yeah.
true. As I
Yeah.
said, once you see them work,
Yeah.
you just can't imagine them doing anything else.
Yeah.
And once you've seen them guide a person through traffic and up an escalator and all that, you say to yourself, that dog isn't meant to be in my backyard its whole
Yeah.
life. It's supposed
Yeah.
to be helping somebody.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And they are
nice.
somebody's eyes.
Yeah.
And to watch those dogs go to veterans who have come home from the war, who have lost their sight
Oh,
in
yeah.
a traumatic incident is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And it really makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody
That's great.
says to me, "How can you do it? How can you do it?"
Yeah.
And I know it's a long explanation, but that's how we do it.
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely. Yeah. It certainly has more rewards than
It sure
yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And and the puppies are so darn cute.
Yeah.
Because you only have puppies.
Yeah, that's right.
As soon as they're big, you give them back. We love the puppies.
Yeah. That's great.
It is.
And you also are involved with Fragile X, which is another thing that's pretty dear to you. So
It is.
Yeah.
My oldest, my 22-year-old, has Fragile X syndrome, which is a defect of the X chromosome. Fragile X is actually the most common inherited form of mental retardation, and he has been in special ed and received services most of his life.
Yeah.
He was diagnosed when he was 9 months old, and essentially the first year after he got diagnosed, I got involved with a very dedicated group of people
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
who all in the same position, because
Yeah.
it was a fairly new diagnosis to most people. Most people who have Fragile X sort of get lumped into the autism spectrum,
Oh, okay.
and many people never actually have the blood test to find out what it is.
Oh, no
but
kidding.
it comes with a variety of other symptoms,
Yeah.
you know, aside from the intellectual disability.
Yeah.
So he, you know, we took up the challenge, and
Yeah.
because that's all you can do
Yeah.
for your child. And I was one of the founding members of the Fragile X Society of Connecticut when, you know, this amazing group of people
Yeah.
and their kids got together and said, we need to help each other.
Right.
And we
Support.
need
Yeah.
to make other people aware that it's out there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, probably 1 in 1,200 women, maybe a little more, is a carrier and doesn't know it.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
So we, you know, sort of had a mission to
Yeah.
get testing and
educate folks.
educate people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm still a member today.
Okay.
And, you know, we've done everything we possibly can,
Yeah.
you know, for Derek. And he's, you know, he's now living in Canton in a group home, and we're really, really pleased with how far he's come.
Well, that's great. That's
So.
great. And that it lended itself because your professional background, I mean, there's so much that you've been able to do, and
Right.
maybe you can let folks know a little bit about
Well,
that.
once I got involved, I of course had to know more, and I had to do more.
Yeah.
So I was practicing law in Norwalk at the time, and one of the attorneys in our office was the staff attorney for Star Residential Services, which provides services in Fairfield County. And he was on the regional advisory board for what was then called DMR. We don't call it DMR anymore.
Yeah.
And he resigned his position, and I was appointed to take his place.
Okay.
And as DMR consolidated into fewer regions throughout
Yeah.
the state, those groups sort of morphed into what we have the Human Rights Committee.
Okay.
And our job, essentially, we were a statutorily appointed board,
Yeah.
and I was appointed as an attorney and a parent. I
Yeah.
serve a dual function there by statute. So we have, you know, it's a whole process,
Yeah.
you know, within the regulations of what's now DDS.
So that's the Department of Developmental Services.
It's now called the Department of Developmental Services.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
back when I started a million years ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was Department of Mental Retardation. But our job is to protect the rights of those who receive services from the department.
Yeah.
And you know, we hear presentations from providers, both state providers and private providers, regarding restrictive components in behavioral plans and other components, you know, to
Yeah.
somebody's, essentially their daily living.
So you're sure that they can maximize the benefits they get the coverage they need, get the help that they need.
Well, mostly
and-
so that they're treated like everybody else.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
our mission is really their human rights, and we sort of stand between them and the bureaucracy of
Yeah.
the department.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot use medication as a restraint. You cannot use alarms and locks and other forms of restraint,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
without a justified reason.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
I see,
We
okay.
decide whether or not your reason is, you know,
Warranted,
justified or
yeah,
warranted
yeah.
for the situation. So
Wow. Wow.
it's a big job, but I love
Yeah.
it. You know, we meet once a month in Wallingford, and
Yeah.
we hear, you know, anywhere from 5 to 8 presentations probably a month.
Wow.
So
So that, and you're an attorney. I obviously we talked about. I've known you since Squadron Line, but we discovered recently. This is just a little bit of a sidebar for folks, though, that we have a friend in common.
We do.
Through your time at Notre Dame.
it's true.
My sister-in-law's brother was one of your classmates, so that was kind of funny.
He was.
So that's just. I mentioned that simply just to let folks know that you went to Notre Dame and your degree was in government, and then you are by practice an attorney.
Yep.
And putting your skills to work for as you volunteer, and I just think that's pretty great. And so, just to kind of bring it back to, as I introduced you as someone on the housing committee member of the Housing Authority, so you're taking sort of all of those things we've talked about and even putting them to work there as well. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about what you do there?
So pleased to be nominated there. As you know, I was really enthusiastic about that. I am one of 5 commissioners on the Simsbury Housing Authority.
Yeah.
The Housing Authority, and most people don't even know we have a housing authority.
Right.
Many people confuse it with farms, and it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But we are a separate facility. We have 110 units right now, I think, divided between the Dr. Owen Murphy apartments, which are more freestanding units. They are efficiencies and one bedrooms, and the congregate assisted living facility of Virginia Connolly.
Yeah.
We are actually, the Virginia Connolly residence is one of only 13 state-funded assisted living congregate facilities in the state.
Yeah.
And we get our funding from both rent. There's a minimal rent because all of our residents have a limited income.
Right.
By regulation, and the Department of Economic and Community Development grants and private donations. And we actually get no funding from the town of Simsbury.
Right.
So it's while we are called the Simsbury Housing Authority, it's a little deceptive because we don't receive any funding from the town. But the residents we serve we don't serve families. We serve adults. Those over 18 who are disabled within the definition of the Social Security Disability Act or over the age of 62.
Okay.
So, and of limited income within the income guidelines set by the state.
Yeah.
So we do have, state funding that's tied to those income levels.
Yeah. And so you're working with Ed LaMontagne, who
I am.
Yeah. And he's got such a great sort of dual role as the chairman of the Aging and Disability Commission, and now recently over at the Housing Authority there is the director.
Yep, he's our executive director.
Yeah.
And he reports to our board as commissioners, and we, on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And he's doing a fabulous job. Ed actually comes from some of the same community of disability advocates that I do.
Yeah.
In fact, he knew some of the same people that I do from the provider world out there.
Yeah.
So, and that's his background. So, which is a great fit.
Right.
He's just doing a great job there.
Yeah. So some of the things that you do sort of in that role, I mean, with the Housing Authority, there's a lot that goes on there, and I think people don't, sort of, as you said, it's something, it's just up at the north end of town, and a lot of people don't know it's there, and yet we, through that role, help so many folks up there. And, I don't know if you can kind of expand on or tell a little bit more about.
One of the main things we're doing now is trying to sort of market our services.
Yeah.
Because, we as a board now are trying to sort of turn the focus outward so that people know we're there.
Yeah.
And because the services that we provide are really, they're necessary and they're high quality, and the people who live there, all appreciate, they fall into certain categories that need assistance. So, and we feel very strongly that there's other people we could help too. So we're trying to get the word out by doing some marketing. We're putting out advertisements in local papers, and on the Connecticut Housing has a website, a state website, and you can find different housing authorities around the state through the state website, and we are one of those. In fact, our director Ed and our past directors have been very involved with Conero, which is the state board, and in fact the Simsbury Housing Authority has developed programs that other authorities in the state are now adopting for long-range planning, capital improvement plans.
That's great.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was there today doing some some work as a commissioner, and we're having a little bit of paving done, but which is also a good thing.
Yeah.
But the residents are really involved, and I've attended several events with residents where we've either gone to the high school and we went to the art show recently, or we have different events at the Housing Authority.
Yeah.
There's always, picnics and
something going
on there.
Yeah.
And during emergencies, which we seem to have a lot of lately, the Housing Authority actually is a shelter in place. So the Virginia Connolly building actually shelters some of the Owen Murphy people or other residents who might need emergency assistance or shelter. So
yeah, I do remember that from the storms and coordinating, and the chief kind of making sure that you guys, you know, had access and everything you needed, knowing that there were going to be some folks that had to head up that way so that they could be cared for, because it's such a difficult thing to go through to, you know, be frail or disabled or elderly and be in a situation like that. And so it's nice to know that that's a resource for folks to be able to go there.
And it's a great place for, say Eagle Scouts come in a lot and do projects at Virginia Connolly. Last year we had an Eagle Scout who made a vegetable garden in the back of Virginia Connolly, which is wheelchair height.
Oh, the raised beds.
The raised beds, but more raised than you might do at your own home, but you know, but at a height where somebody who was sitting in a chair could work in the garden. Yeah. Which was a great idea. I thought it was fabulous. We had another Eagle Scout this year who made a storage shed for us for you know, different pieces of equipment and recreational things and files and all that other fun stuff that goes along with running a housing authority. But they have, you know, they do so much with, I think they only have 5 full-time employees. And it's amazing how dedicated and hardworking those people are. Yeah. It's a great place.
The gentleman that preceded Ed,
Joe
Lowy, I just, when you mentioned the state group, and I remember that going away, and they all came and talked so highly of him, and Ed being nervous filling his shoes, and and I know Joe said he was on standby for Ed during the transition. And you were in though around about that time, so you were able
I was
to,
part of the whole transition process. So that was it was great. You know, it was we had a lot of really qualified candidates, but as I said, I like Ed's background.
It's a good thing to have all those folks.
It's good. It really is.
So you know, I just I think this program is a great, you know, as we talk about community conversations, a great way to get to know people in the town, and as we talked about, so many volunteers that are part of our community, and I think with the volunteer appreciation event, I want to say we were upwards of 130 plus folks.
I was on the committee organizing the event, so we.
That's right. You did the name tags.
I did. I addressed the invitations.
That's right. So 130 is sounding about right.
Exactly. It sounds just about right. But it was a great event. I invite my mother lives here in town now as of 2 years ago, and I invited her to come, and she was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. You know, it's a great group of people, and people who volunteer their time, you know, give so much of themselves to do whatever tasks they've decided they're going to help with. But it's really heartwarming to see all of that community involvement.
And it was nice. You mentioned your mom. There were a lot of other people that came as guests or you know, friends of, and as we gathered afterwards and had refreshments, a couple of folks were talking about, oh, I think I might want to, you know, so whether they're young families and people that were just moving into town, like we're talking about getting involved with PTO stuff, which does tend to lead to other things. That's how it happened for me. It just kind of morphs into so many other things. And then folks that are just finding they have a little bit extra time on their hand, they're retired, and wanting to move into some volunteer work. So
I would say over the course of the 10 years that I've been involved in the PTOs, we've been trying, you know, as chair people and leaders in the PTO, trying to encourage parents who, even though both parents might work during the day, you know, we've had presidents who have full-time jobs, you know, not to be intimidated by by the volunteering there, because we're a big group, and particularly at the larger schools like Squadron and Latimer, it's a lot of people.
Well, you mentioned 40 committees you had to find folks for, and it does seem daunting, but believe it or not, you find people to do that.
It's true.
I was just recently at the fundraiser that they had for the playground that they're trying to put together there, and
again,
yeah, I know, full circle, right? I remember that with Chris Barnett.
Yep,
and,
I was on that committee too.
You were on that committee too, raising funds for the playground. But it is amazing, the number of people that were attending there and the number of donations that they got from people in the community that wanted to help out and give whatever they could to help them raise some money. So we are definitely blessed with.
We are. So we've been trying to let people know that you don't have to be there all day, every day. You don't have to come to every meeting in the middle of the morning. It's a lot more varied and open to everybody.
Yeah.
And in fact, once I moved into the PTOs at Henry James and the high school, all the meetings are in the evening, and you're never there during the day.
Yeah.
So
most folks are going back to work
I
to
was
make
gonna
that money
say,
for
everybody's
college.
going back, and nobody is there during the day. You really don't want to be there during the day.
Yeah.
So, I would say anybody who shied away from it because, you thought that it was going to be too much, in the middle of the day, that's not the case anymore.
Right. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for joining me on our program.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and as I said, it's such a great opportunity. We thank SCTV and the volunteers behind the cameras so much, because it is a great opportunity to be able to come into their studios and have folks like you come and let people know what's going on in town, and they see how much fun you have and how much you enjoy all that you do, and it encourages them hopefully to do the same. So Cheryl, thank you for joining me.
It was nice being here with you.
Yeah. And we'll join everybody for our next community conversations. Thank you.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.